Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about feeling silly. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, as a programmer, do you sometimes feel embarrassed when asking senior software developers about problems that you feel are silly? Yes. Well, not anymore, but I used to in some cases, yes. But I think that is completely normal. I would really say so. It is probably the most normal thing that you can imagine because usually, and this is just my experience, you have two types of juniors, and you are almost always going to find that the junior is on a range here. You have either the junior who is scared absolute shitless of everything. They're like a candle in the wind, like any harsh language or like anything harsh is gonna completely crush them. It's gonna feel horrible. And then you have the juniors who are trying to impress you all the time. They try to question everything, and they have a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm, and they're out to impress their senior software coworkers because they look up to them in a way. And usually people are in a range between these two. So it's really, really normal for a junior to feel a little bit embarrassed. I mean, this is very easy to say. It's a really hard thing to do. But you should fight that a little bit because what's important isn't for you to either impress your coworker or to prove that you are an amazing software developer. What's important for you is to learn. Now, I think it's important for you to also understand that there is a sweet spot to asking for help or like to bother other developers with your problems and your questions and so forth. Uh, in a healthy work environment, you should be able to ask for help. As a rule, you should be able to do that. But you have to also understand that there's a personal responsibility in that as well, because if you keep on asking people, even if it doesn't necessarily need to be a silly question, but if you keep on asking over and over and over, and you're really not trying by yourself to solve the problem, well, then people your senior coworkers might get really annoyed with you because you're bothering them all the time. And this is a very hard balance because you might not be asking because you're lazy, you might be asking because you're simply not that good at the thing that you're doing right now. And you might get better, but that is a bit of a balancing act. And this is where I think that the human element is the most telling, because I've seen situations where there's a mismatch, where the senior is not interested in answering a lot of questions and so forth, and they actually emotionally punish, and sometimes even worse, the junior for asking. Even when the junior doesn't really ask all that often, might be like a completely reasonable thing. They're a bitter old senior, and they don't really feel like they want to help this person out. And then of course there are other such scenarios where you have someone who is so junior that they practically don't know anything, or they have the wrong mindset, or they're not so gifted as a developer, and they ask all the time, like they don't even try to fix things themselves, and that creates another really bad situation. So there is this balancing act between being the person who's asking for help and the person who's giving help. Usually there's this relationship that needs to be in some type of harmony for this to work well. And the thing is, even though it might feel stupid, even if it might feel silly, as a junior developer, you really only have two cards to play. The first card is to try your absolute darndest to fix it yourself. That's the first card you should always play. But at some point, you're going to have to play the second card. And that second card is, well, I'm very sorry to say that some juniors are so afraid of playing this card that they don't try to play it. They try to avoid it as much as possible, and then they get forced into playing it because they're delayed, or there's a lot of bugs or issues. They can't simply do it. And that is that you need to go and ask for that help. And here's the kicker about that. You might find yourself if you're really lucky, you have coworkers who are very nice and sociable, and you enjoy working with them, and they will help you. They will be someone who you will want to ask for help. Unfortunately, you can also be in that other situation where you have coworkers who you don't like all that much, and you still have to ask for help because you don't know how to solve the problem. And this is tough. This is really tough, and unfortunately, you have no other way than to ask for assistance with this issue if you can't solve it yourself. And I would suggest to you that you look at this as a learning opportunity, not just with people that you feel that you don't want to ask for help, but just in general. Understand that being someone who's new at something or trying to learn anything, it's part of it is feeling stupid, guys. Part of it is making a fool out of yourself and asking ridiculous questions and kind of just being humble enough to understand that this is something that you're not so good at, and continue that process of learning. You should always try to, of course, fix things yourself, but if you can't fix it, you need help, and everybody needs help every once in a while. So by killing off this fear you have of feeling stupid, this is the thing that I've actually said this to a few developers where I felt that it was appropriate, you new developers, where I explained, dude, you are a good software developer. You can just breathe. It's not you don't have to sit here and try to impress me with all the things that you know and use all these trend words, because you're not you are learning, and I know that you are learning. It's okay. You have nothing to gain from impressing me. Let's just focus on doing a good job here, instead of you trying to prove to me that you know your stuff, because I know that you're a good developer, but you're also a junior. These things are new to you, and that's fine. The only reason I know these things is because I've been doing it for longer than you, and I promise you, before you know it, you're not gonna try to impress anybody anymore. You're just gonna feel like, yeah, this is just normal, and because it happens to us all. So what I want you to take away from this is that yes, it's very normal, and I'd have the same issue, to feel silly or stupid to ask for help from seniors. One part is usually because you're afraid of the senior, or you're scared of, like, they may not be so sociable or so forth, or and another one is that you want to impress people. You want to be a good developer, and asking for help is tough. It's tough for a lot of people. And I think that both of these problems can be solved with you just accepting the fact that you are learning things right now. And if you try to avoid asking for help when you really need it, you should always try to solve problems yourself first and foremost, of course, because that is the best thing if you can do that. But don't get to a point where you're afraid to ask for help. Because if you get to that point, regardless of if you work with nice coworkers or bad coworkers, it's just gonna hurt you. I had once upon a time I told a girl, one of my old girlfriend's son, when he was in school, that he had a teacher he wasn't so fond of, and I said, "This is tough. This is going to be a challenge for you. But remember, if you do bad in school because you don't ask for help or you don't try as hard because your teacher isn't so nice to you, that's not going to hurt the teacher. It's going to hurt you and your future." And I tell you now, you guys, the same thing. If you find it hard to ask for help, or you find it hard to deal with a specific person, you have to develop thicker skin, because at the end of the day, if you can't progress, you are the one who's going to stand still. You're the one who's not going to keep the job, or you're the one who's not going to progress your career as much. Don't let your fear of asking for help get in the way of that. Grow as a person and get strong enough to accept that sometimes you're going to have to go through some stuff that you're not going to like all that much. Have a great day.